So I decided that argument that women were equal now and we shouldn't be making a fuss really didn't stand up to scrutiny. In fact, it seemed to me that it really was time to make a fuss. So I set up a simple website because I realized that we couldn't solve a problem if people refused even to acknowledge that it existed. And that what I really wanted people to have was that experience that I'd had of seeing these things kind of rolled out in front of them like a map and realizing how much there was and how bad it still was. So I set up a very simple website called the Everyday Sexism Project. And I asked women and men to add their experiences of gender imbalance on a daily basis, anything from the tiny, niggling, and normalized things all the way up the scale. And I didn't have any funding or any way of publicizing it, so I thought that maybe 20 or 30 women would add their stories, and I hoped that it would build a sense of solidarity and help to raise awareness. But instead, things took off a little more than I expected. 50,000 women from all over the world added their stories in 18 months. A female reverend in the Church of England was asked if there was a man available to perform the wedding or the funeral service, nothing personal. A man was congratulated for babysitting his own children. A woman working in the city was asked if she would sit on her boss's lap if she wanted her Christmas bonus. A woman who worked in a video store found that every time she went up the ladder to get fresh stock from the storeroom, her boss would smack her on the bum, and when she came down again, he'd look down her top and say, "You know why I hired you." A waitress was told to make a choice between having an abortion or resigning when she fell pregnant. A 15-year-old girl wrote that she knew that she was clever and funny and she could do anything she wanted to do, but really it didn't matter if she became a doctor or a lawyer because she knew from the world around her and from the media that the only thing that really mattered was whether she was sexy, whether her breasts grew and her waist narrowed, and whether boys found her attractive. A 13-year-old girl wrote to say that she'd been showed a video of sex at school on a boy's mobile phone, a video of porn, and that now she's so scared to have sex that she cries every night because she didn't realize that what sex was the woman hurting and crying. A woman in Pakistan talked about hiding abuse for the sake of family honor. A woman in Brazil tried to ignore 3 men who catcalled her, only to find that they tried to drag her into their car. In Mexico, a woman was told by her university professor, "Calladita, te ves más bonita," "You look prettier when you shut up." And then something else started to happen. After we had received about 10,000 stories, we started getting some which had a very different tone. We started getting success stories. We started hearing from women like one who said that she was a keen runner and she often experienced harassment, but she thought it was just the way things were. And then after reading the stories on the website, she realized other women were standing up to this and other people were acknowledging that this shouldn't be normal and it wasn't okay. And the next time she went running, a guy happened to call her over from his car and ask for directions, so she went over and helped him. And then he reached out of the car window and grabbed her breasts really hard, really hurt her. And she said she felt all of the experiences, the feelings wash over her that she normally felt in that situation. Terror, embarrassment, shame, the urge to run, but she also felt something she hadn't felt before. And it was that feeling of those women behind her standing up. And it gave her the strength just for a moment to stop and take down the guy's car number plate, and now he's been charged with assault. But we also started hearing people's individual stories of standing up. And that was really fascinating and crucial because these weren't stories of waving banners or going on marches, as valuable as those are. They were stories of women and men around the world finding their own very unique and individual ways to stand up that worked for them and made a difference in their lives. We heard from a woman who was being sexually harassed in the office, who printed off a copy of her workplace sexual harassment policy and put it on every single person's desk, and the harassment stopped. We heard from a woman who said that she was sick of cold callers ringing. She was a single mum, and she was sick of cold callers ringing and asking to speak to the man of the house. So now she puts them on to her 6-year-old son. And apparently he sings them, "I'm sexy and I know it." We heard from a guy who was walking past a building site when 2 builders screamed at 2 women on the other side of the road, "Get your tits out." So he lifted up his t-shirt instead. We heard from a woman who said that now every time someone screams "nice tits" at her in the street, she looks down at them and screams as if she's never seen them before. We heard from a man who said that he'd never really thought about harassment before, but after reading the stories on the website, it made him have a completely new insight into what it actually felt like for women. And the next time he saw another guy in the street harassing 2 women, he ran after him and tapped him on the shoulder and just said, "Sorry, can I just ask you, why did you do that?" And the other guy had no answer because he'd never been asked that question before. because it was just normal for him too. He'd grown up in a world where that was just normal and that was just something that men did. And that's the really important thing here, because sadly and frustratingly, we can no longer point to one specific policy change or piece of legislation that we need to solve this problem.